And how's it going, guys? Joshua Femi here, live from LA. And in this tutorial, we're gonna have my bro Herman Huang, aka Coffeelicker, tell us how to make an awesome broken mirror effect in After Effects. Guys, we are currently in another creative week, and it's sponsored by Envato Elements. You can actually get a free month of Envato Elements in the link below, but more on that a little bit later. Coffeelicker is gonna be releasing one video every day this week, diving into the incredible world of VFX. Coffeelicker is an extremely talented VFX artist based out of Vancouver, Canada. Now in the link below, there's actually a project file that you can download so you can actually do the tutorial with me in real time. Try this though, watch this tutorial all the way through once, just sitting back and relaxing and soaking it in, and then download the project file and then watch it a second time and then actually do the tutorial with me while editing with the project file. Herman, the floor is yours.
Thank you as always for hyping me up, Josh. We're gonna be learning how to do a broken glass effect that I first did a few years back in a product promo campaign. Now, it was initially inspired by a music video I saw from Vane Seal. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. I had to wiki it. Now, this time I wanted to try something different and step it up, and I fused this idea of a post I saw from Jam Tuna to do this. So as you can see, it's a bit of a fusion of different ideas to bring something fresh. So let's dive into how to do it. Now, when it comes to filming, you can pretty much use whatever footage that you want. I recommend using a locked off camera shot and the subject doing a basic action, something like lifting their head up or just blinking, because the shattered glass effect already looks pretty busy and complicated. Adding anything more complicated could be a little bit overwhelming and messy. In this case, I created a broken mirror instead of applying the broken glass effect to a frontal. However, once you know how to do this, you can apply it to any way that you want. I just like making things harder for myself. I don't know why I do it. Maybe I'm just always trying to push the boundaries. Now you can follow along with the provided project file that you can download in the description below. Once you have that and you have After Effects launched, let's get into what to do. All right, so you've just launched After Effects. This is what you see. What you'll want to do is import your footage. So in this case, we have a head turn footage that I've looped, and also one where I'm just blinking, staring off. Feels a little creepy the longer that you stare at it. So these are the footage that are provided in the project file if you want to do something similar to what I did. However, you can use literally any footage that you like. As I mentioned before, you just throw it into After Effects and we will make a new comp. So we're going to drag this onto this icon, which will make a new composition. We're going to put the other one as well into the composition. They're both the same length. As I mentioned before, they are perfectly looped. And I will rename this composition to something like main and put it in the tutorial comp. And we are set. So what we do now is throw in the broken glass graphic or image that you intend to use. Now in this case, I'm using one that I found from Envato Elements. You can use your favorite royalty-free site, or you can find something online if it's for personal use. But in this case, I found this is perfect. And the type of texture that I want to look for is one with multiple fragments, as you can see right over here. So I feel like there are different fragments where I can create the broken look. If it's too shattered like this the entire way through, then there would be too many fragments. If there's not enough, then you're not going to have as many fragments. So something like this, where it looks like a bullet hole, would still work, but I prefer something like this for the type of style that I'm going for. So I've already imported it in After Effects. It's under my assets, and if I double click this, you can see that I have this broken glass texture, which I will throw on top of my footage. Of course, I'm going to resize this to whatever I find reasonable. Now I'm going to throw the blending mode to screen just so I can see the brighter parts of the image showing up over my image. Now here's where I'm going to provide an optional step. So in this case, I'm making a broken mirror, which means I'm going to resize it and make it look like the mirror itself is broken instead of throwing it right on top of my footage, kind of like what I have here. Now, if you decide to do something like what I showed earlier, where the person is looking towards camera and you just want the effect to happen head on, then you can skip this step. But feel free to follow along if you have the project file open along with me. Now, in this case, I'm going to toggle the switches and modes so that I can bring up this option to make it into a 3D object. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I have these options to play with multiple axes for rotation. So why I'm doing that is so that it can kind of blend with the orientation of the mirror. So in this case, I'm going to first rotate this something like that. And this will be depending on your taste. I hit S so that I can bring up the scale and just move it around.
All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick break and I'm gonna tell you about Envato Elements. If you're watching this video, you're probably a video editor, and Envato Elements is a video editor's dream. It's a subscription service that gives you unlimited downloads of the most incredible stock footage, like cloud and fog overlays, aerial footage, fire, lightning, They also have incredible VFX packs, Premiere and After Effects templates, sound effects, royalty-free music, and literally anything you could ever want as a video editor. Just by clicking the link below, you will automatically get a free first month. You'll see that coupon for the free first month at the very end after you've finished signing up. And that's it. I use Elements literally in some regard every day.
So in this case, I'm going to first rotate this something like, like that. And this will be depending on your taste. I hit S so that I can bring up the scale and just move it around kind of like that. So what I'm intending to do is to kind of rotate it in a way where there would be fragments, larger fragments across my face, because I'm going to retime it and reshape it a little bit so that it'll create an interesting visual. And I'm trying to kind of hide a little bit of this big part because it's not very relevant for the effect that I'm trying to do. Now, this kind of looks pretty good if I look at just the parts where it's touching the mirror. So this fit up to 100 already. So this is pretty much what I am going to be working with. Now in this case, I'm going to create a matte. That way I can mask around the area for the parts that I want to keep, which is the parts that are overlapping with the mirror. So all these parts where it's this disgusting shatter on top of my face, let's get rid of that. So how I'm going to do that is first hit Control Y so that I can make a new solid, make the color white, and then I'm going to call it matte for mirror. We're going to hit OK, and then we're going to hide the visibility because now we're going to take our pen tool up here, or you can hit G, doesn't matter. And I'm also going to hide the broken glass mirror just so I can see the image. I'm going to make sure I'm highlighted on the matte layer, and I'm going to start masking the area that I want to keep the shattered glass effect. So I'm going to quickly do this. And as you can see, this is what I am left with. So you can see the mask, and if I turn on the visibility of the solid that I created, the white parts cover the mirror. So what am I gonna do with this? First, I'm going to hit F so that I can kind of feather it, because right now the edges are a little bit harsh. Maybe I'll feather it to maybe 3%, something like that, looks a little bit better. And then I'm going to hide the visibility of it. I'm gonna turn back the visibility of the broken glass image, and we're going to toggle the switches in mode down here again. Clicking it once, we are bringing up this track matte, and we're going to click it once, and it's going to give me these options. So I can either use alpha matte or luma matte. And basically what mattes do is it tells the layer which parts should be showing of the image. So in this case, I could either use alpha matte or luma matte. The reason being that alpha matte shows the parts that are not transparent, which would be the parts that I basically masked and are white. But I could also use a luma matte, which would basically show the brighter parts of the image, in this case, which is white, so both would work. So in this case, I'll just stick to luma matte, it really doesn't matter. And the reason that I'm using a matte instead of directly masking the glass shatter image is because number one, it's a 3D object, so it can do some weird things. And number two, I can move around this glass layer without affecting the area that it is applied on the mirror. So if I decide to change my mind and move it a little bit like this, then I have the option of doing so instead of moving my mask all the time. Now, if you decided not to be a maniac like me and make things harder for himself, then you can follow along starting here if you decided to just slap on the broken glass effect directly onto your footage. I'm going to pre-comp these two just so I can keep it nice and tidy. We'll call it the shattered glass, like so.
Guys, I hope you've been liking this tutorial so far. I'd like to just say if you can just click the like button and subscribe to this channel, and then make sure that you click the notification bell. That's great for the algorithm. It's just gonna be telling YouTube that we're doing a great job, and it's gonna inform you every time we release a new video. We got so much great stuff that we're currently creating for you that's coming out real soon.
We're gonna change the blending mode back to screen. Now, an optional thing you can do, because if I turn this on and off, you can tell that the blacks are a little bit faded because of the photo of the broken glass that I'm using. However, if you would like to make some adjustments to the image, then you can always add a curves to adjust it and blend it a little bit better with your scene. Kind of like that. But that's totally up to you. And to quickly talk about the way that I brought up that effect was I used a shortcut Control Spacebar to bring up a plugin called Effects Console, which is by Video Copilot, which allows you to save some time and then find some effects instead of going to the effects tab over here. So that's just a nice little tip to speed up your workflow. But moving forward, let's do the main effect. So basically, starting from here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna create mattes just like what you did before, if you followed along, but for each fragment of the broken glass. So that's going to be up to you to decide. So in this case, I would make a fragment over here, this large chunk over here, and then another fragment over here, and then another fragment over here, and then so on and so forth. However, the bottom over here, I believe I don't really move around. It's mostly just my head turning, so I would just worry about this top part over here. So just like before, I'm gonna use my shortcut Control-Y to make a new solid. We're gonna call it Fragment 1. And then I'm going to hide the layer, making sure that's still highlighted. I'm going to click the pen tool, and I'm gonna start drawing the part that I would like the first fragment to be, which is kind of over here. Please excuse my poor masking skills. I'm quickly doing it for demonstration purposes. And this is also a great time to practice your pen tool because it's very useful to know how to mask things. So basically what I've done now is I create a mask. Of course, you can't really see the results of it, but if I turn the visibility on, you can see that it is the area that I just masked. And you can always play with the feather as I did before. I hit F as a shortcut to bring up the mask feather, change it to, let's say 3, and that's pretty good. So that's your first fragment. And then the rest of them, you can decide where you would like the fragments to be. So I would basically either duplicate this or make a new solid. It doesn't really matter. We're going to rename this fragment 2. I'm gonna hit M to bring up my masks. I can either use the existing mask and then move the points around by hitting V and then just highlighting the points I would like to move around. So let's say that I want to use this part without redrawing it, and I would like to move the fragment to the bottom one, kind of like this. So starting from here, I can always delete points as well. It's really up to you in terms of what your efficient workflow is when using the pen tool. But for me, this is the simplest way. I just hit the points I would like to delete, click and delete, and then start kind of removing the points that I would like to mask. So I hit G to bring up the pen tool, and this will add a new point. That's how I'm adding these new points. I can also hit Alt while I hit a point, and then it will change into the convex tool, which I am able to change the handles like this and move them around like so. So these are some quick little tips to use the pen tool if you're not too familiar with it. I believe it's called the convex vertex tool. There you go. So that's my second fragment. If I turn the visibility on, you can see I have now 2 fragments like so, and you will do this as many times as the amount of fragments you would like to create. It's a bit of a time-consuming process, and it's up to you on how detailed you would like it.
Now before we continue, if you're liking the video so far, please check out my Instagram page at Coffeelicker, and you can see what I've been working on. Shoot me a DM if you want to chat, or if you got any questions as well, because I'd be more than happy to reply back. All right, let's continue.
Now to speed things up, I have copied and pasted from my previous project where I already have a broken glass that I've worked around with a little more, and I've also created a bunch of fragments to use as mats. So if I turn each one of these on, so I have 11 fragments. It's up to you, again, how many you would like to create depending on the image that you're using. If I turn them on one by one, you can see the fragments that I decided to start kind of, I guess, fragmenting. So I'm gonna turn the visibility off for all of them. So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna take your layer, the one that you would like to show up as fragments. So that could just be one layer footage that you're using right now if you're just slapping it directly on top. So in this case, I'm going to be using the head turn looped footage to be the area that will be kind of offset and rescaled and retimed for the reflection. However, you could just use your bottom footage and then play around with that as well. So I'm going to only turn on the visibility of the head turn one, and then I'm going to move this directly underneath the fragment 11, which is this piece, as you can see highlighted in fuchsia. And what's going to happen is we're going to take the head turn loop, we're going to go to the track mat, and if you don't see it, remember you can hit the button, toggle switches and mode to bring it up. And then I'm going to either use alpha matte or luma matte, it doesn't matter in this case. I'm going to use alpha matte, and as you can see, it's showing just the fragment of the image. Now, if I turn the base layer on, the bottom over here, this is just the one where I'm blinking. And if I play this through, you can see that this fragment over here is a little bit different than the rest of them. Now, this isn't going to be very apparent because that's not where most of the movement is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this layer, the head turn one, and I'm going to hit Control D. And what that does is it's going to duplicate the layer, and it actually goes on top of that previous fragment layer and directly underneath the next one. So that's a nice little thing that After Effects does. And it's already set to alpha matte so that this fragment over here also has matte. We're gonna do this as many times as the amount of fragments that you have. So in this case, we're gonna do a total of 11 times, or however many times until this is all filled, so that each fragment has a head turn footage underneath with an alpha matte. And when I play this through, all of the head turn, except for some parts that I did not create a matte for, is applied to the mirror reflection. Now, this is where the fun begins. You can start moving things around without affecting the areas that you masked, which is the reason that we used a matte. That may sound a little bit wordy and confusing, but what I mean is that let's say that I were to apply a mask to this footage and I were to scale it like this, then it wouldn't be within the fragment that I masked earlier. And then I would have to move the mask, and then you'd write angry comments in the YouTube section saying, Herman, what are you doing? So I'm gonna hit Ctrl-Z to undo what I just did. So once you have all your fragments set up like so, in this case, all 11 pieces, you're ready to basically experiment and try whatever you would like to achieve. In this case, I'm going to be doing some sort of variation between each fragment for all my 11 pieces. And I'm gonna be working with 3 different things for each of them. 1 is I'm going to rescale them. Number 2 is I'm gonna reposition them. And number 3 is I'm going to retime them. And this will be enough to create a interesting visual. So in this case, I'm gonna play around with each one over here. So you're not touching the matte layer over here, you're actually touching the footage. And then I'm going to kind of rescale it like this. I'm gonna go to my next one, I'm gonna rescale it. I can reposition it as well, depending on what you feel looks better. I'm trying to really make it look like a broken glass with some interesting visuals. So this is starting to look interesting and creepy at the same time, mostly because I'm just staring into your soul. But if I play this through, this is basically what it looks like right now. And this is already looking pretty interesting. Now, of course, you want to make sure that your shattered glass layer is on the very top so that it overlaps with your mask like this. Or if you prefer a look kind of like this, and then you keep it like so as well, whichever looks realistic in your head. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it on the very bottom like so. And then as you saw earlier, I was playing with the scale and the position. And then now I'm going to change the timing a little bit. So I'm going to stagger the timing to whatever I feel looks interesting. And you can do this by a couple frames. Doesn't really matter. So all I'm doing is taking the footage and I'm just kind of offsetting them a little bit like so. And then when I play it through, of course, the beginning part's going to be kind of weird because some layers are just appearing. But if I play through from the middle like this, you can see that the timing is a little bit different, which creates an interesting visual. And this is the part where you get to experiment and see whatever looks the best to achieve your result. So in this case, I'm going to hit the tilde key so I can full screen this area, my timeline. I'm going to take all of the fragment layers along with the footage, and I'm just going to move it back a little bit so I don't have that weird part where it's appearing out of nowhere. And then you can always change your render bar to the length that you desire. And once you've reached this point, you are essentially done. Voila, you are ready to basically render this out. So once this is in the correct time, I'm not going to touch on creating this into a perfect loop because that's not what this video is about. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control-M so that I can bring it into the render queue. You can change the output model to whatever settings that you think is the best. You can go to QuickTime, or you can put it into AME so that you have more render settings that you can choose from. Usually when I'm putting it on Instagram, I just go with H.264. Now, I'll quickly touch on a few things that you can do to make it look even fancier, because let's say that you want to be a little extra, you want to add some flavor to it. So I added my little Coffeelicker touch. So I added a few things. Number 1 was a color grade. I added some vignettes, basically darkening the parts that I don't want the viewers to be too interested in, which is the surrounding areas. And then I also brightened my face a little bit in the reflection, added a flare, which you can also get from Envato Elements. And I added a plugin called Saber. And if you'd like to learn a little more about these effects, then drop a comment down below in this video, and maybe, just maybe, we'll make a tutorial about it.
So that is how you do it. It's a dope effect that may feel kind of specific. However, I think that you can apply it to a wide variety of things. So how I used it was to kind of symbolize a broken character, maybe a shattered sense of identity or shattered dreams. Sounds a little depressing, but I swear I'm okay, I think. As always, stay tuned to the next tutorial from both Josh and myself. And if you haven't done so already, check out my Instagram. It's @Coffeelicker, and you can see what I've been up to. And that is it. Until the next time, take it away, Josh.
Herman, thank you so much for yet another incredible VFX tutorial. Please make sure to watch all the other incredible tutorials that we have in this month's Creative Week with Herman Huang. I got 2 more videos for you to check out right here. Remember to get your free month of Envato elements in the link below. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and as always, remember to keep it chill.